Bonjour à tous. Hello to everybody. We are back from the Democratic Republic of Congo and are here to give a little update about what's going on there. We returned 2 weeks ago, just as the airplanes and the airports and the countries were closing. At Vanga at the time, people were just becoming aware of the coronavirus. They were just hearing about all of these things in the news. And we had already planned to come home at this time, and our schedule was bumped up a little bit because of the situation with the flights. So we left a little bit brusquely, but before we left, we were able to begin the process of preparing the hospital in Vanga to be ready for coronavirus. The hospital at Vanga has a certain amount of preparedness because Ebola is known in Congo, and so we have a certain amount of PPE we've been supplying and trying to get ready for that eventuality, never anticipating that a virus such as coronavirus would be what was needed. So we had a meeting with our colleagues, the leaders of the hospital, and began reviewing together what we could do to prevent coronavirus. The problem in Vanga is, and really probably much of Africa and other developing areas, is there is no treatment for coronavirus. There's not even the supportive care such as ventilators. There are no ventilators in Vanga at our hospital. There's a little bit of oxygen that we can use if needed, but other than that, there's nothing particularly specific to coronavirus that we can provide. And so we really, really have to be preventing the spread, because once it spreads, there's just not much to do. So we were talking about, increasing our hand washing stations, using the masks appropriately, limiting the number of people who come into the hospital, and trying to release patients as soon as possible so that there's both space and less risk of contamination. For my part, I am the director of the nursing school, and at the time that I left, nothing had changed, but within a week, the government has shut down all universities, and so our nursing school has been closed now. The students have been sent home to rest in isolation with their families. So there's not much happening at this point, although on this side, I continue to be your missionary by downloading articles that we can have on the computers in our nursing school library. We do not have internet connection, so articles that I can bring on flash disk and put on the computers, that keeps our library more up to date. Also, I am a preschool teacher, and we had already planned to close out while I was gone, but that continues. What doesn't continue, or what doesn't stop, is that we are always recruiting for Vanga. We need kindergarten teacher, we need medical people, we need support staff in terms of accounting and computer maintenance and maintenance in general and all of that. So lots of things don't stop, even though we're not there in person. And Tim can tell you how he is working with the hospital leadership to manage the coronavirus.
So I usually like to start talking about the hospital by actually starting at the church. The work of the church, the work of Christians, is really central to what we're doing at the hospital. This is a picture, I think you should be able to see it, where we had a group of people visiting us from the United States, as well as a fistula surgeon from Kinshasa. We have instituted a process of no mask, no entry of the hospital. And so this is difficult because of the limited resources. And as Kathy mentioned, we do have a very limited amount of ability to provide care, oxygen concentrator, We have a few oxygen concentrators. This equipment costs $1,000 and needs 24-hour electricity. Fortunately, we've had we recently, as of last October, had installed a large battery, which then does allow us to provide 24-hour electricity. So this is a screenshot of the hospital. It's a 400-bed hospital, single story, goats in the courtyard. And then we also have some nice shots here of inside where we're patients are drying their clothes out on the grass. We wanted to end this video with a brief discussion about Psalms 91. Psalms 91 talks about God's goodness, that He is a shelter, that He is, we can rest in His shadow. He's a refuge. He's a fortress. He's a shield. He's a buckler. He is our dwelling, our permanent place that we get to be. He's our rescuer and our protection. And this passage applies to us as we work through being back in the United States and doing my hospital time at Cardinal Glennon, as well as to our brothers and sisters as we pray for them and continue to send resources and support them. And these apply in these following three ways. We know that God's kingdom is already here, but yet there are many broken things that are still not fixed, and we get to be a part of that. And as we know from Peter's experience walking on the water, that it is important that we keep our eyes and our focus of our faith on God and His goodness, and not on the storm and the chaos and the difficulties of serving God in dangerous situations, whether it's COVID-19 or whether it's Ebola or whether it's just tuberculosis or other malaria or other things that we are and our colleagues are exposed to and at risk for there in Vanga. And the final message is that God's great plan always uses pain and suffering to complete His plan, and that suffering included Jesus's death on the cross, and it includes us being willing to step out in faith and trust Him as we show His love and as we look for ways of being practical hands and feet. And we trust God that even as we walk forward, we know that God will provide our needs and the resources needed. We certainly are aware of the rising unemployment here in the United States, but we know that people are generously continuing to support us, and we do thank you for that, and standing with us in prayer as well as we love and serve in Congo.